He's going to be ready to come right out the gates. And he's going to be a very high pick when we get to that draft in Green Bay.
To run. He's got the end zone. Sanders down the field.
Cam Ward to throw. Into the end zone.
Ward's going to take off.
Diving! Shot out of a cannon, coming off the edge.
Underheat. Lost the football, put it on the ground.
Matthew Golden for 6.
And all too easy, Matthew Golden. Because he jumps off the tape.
Lacerating that offensive front.
JT with some room.
Powers his way, breaking tackles. Still on his feet. Nobody open. He's sacked all the way back. Abdul Carter.
Shante Barron the takeaway.
Outfield.
And it is intercepted.
Wow, what a wrinkle. Tyler Ward. Caught. Touchdown.
Again, fires. End zone. Hunter caught it.
Throws for Hunter.
He'll walk in for 6.
Welcome to Mock Draft Live. It is presented by Toyota. Mike and Bucky Brooks in our usual spot. The man of the hour.
Yeah,
Rhett Lewis. It is his mock draft 1.0. It's a one and done. No.
That's what he's doing.
No, that's not what he's doing.
Oh.
Look, Bucky, you do like 15 mocks on NFL.com. Rhett, you do one. This, you pour over the film,
so much
the tape. You're
so
making
much
calls
the
to front up,
insight.
the whole thing. I mean, this is good. I have your mock right here. This is exactly what's going to happen on draft day.
Yeah, look, I kind of feel like Batman filling out the mock draft. This is not necessarily the mock draft that people want, but it's the mock draft that people need. Mike, you know what I mean?
There's a crystal ball. We're doing some real forecasting here. I can't wait to get through all of this and get your analysis because you actually have.
I can't wait to play Robin. I can't wait to be Robin. I can't wait to be the sidekick.
You're not going to be Robin. You're more like Joker.
That's right.
Just kind of weaseling his way in and making comments on all of Rhett's picks. Here we go, Rhett. 1 through 5. And not a huge surprise here. It seems like it is an obvious choice at number 1 with Cam Ward. Where it gets interesting, a week ago, we had Lance Zierlein's mock front and center here on Mock Draft Live. He had a bunch of trades. Rhett's got one with the Cleveland Browns moving out of the 2nd overall selection to take the Heisman Trophy winner.
Throwing on the run, and it's picked off. And that's Hunter. Travis Hunter.
Jefferson gets away from one. It's superhuman pick from Travis Hunter. Ooh, and he just popped a little hot, man. He made an incredible catch.
End zone, Hunter caught it.
Got a man. Room service touchdown. Hunter.
Presented by Toyota, so it's not the Cleveland Browns at number 2. It is the Raiders moving up. I like the fact that you're making some moves here. We got to trade. Explain to me why Vegas would want Travis Hunter.
Why wouldn't they want Travis Hunter? Let's start there with the fact that this is probably the only player in this draft that feels worthy of really making a move up like this to go get. You're getting a 2-for-1 right here, and it just so happens that the Raiders have some pretty big needs at both the cornerback spot and the wide receiver spot. Pete Carroll is not a coach that is going to be afraid of letting Travis Hunter go full-time on both sides of the ball until he can't do it, and then we'll figure out something else. But we're going to let him go be at his best, and that is when he is on both sides of the ball making plays with those tremendous ball skills, best in the draft, hands down.
Well, I like this. I like Rhett being bold. I like the Raiders going up to get Travis Hunter. And if you know a little thing about the history of the franchise of the Raiders, they love Heisman Trophy winners. Going back to when I was there, it was Charles Woodson. Then it was Tim Brown. Before then, it was Marcus Allen. They love having guys that have done the pose in the bronze. And when I think about the needs that they have on offense and defense, he certainly fits the bill. This is a guy that is terrific as a playmaker, offensively, defensively. And when you have Pete Carroll, who's all about winning and win forever, he is going to give this guy an opportunity to do what he does. Play the game. I love it.
Come on.
There's Cleveland Browns fans right now that are really upset with you. What's the cost? What are they getting for him?
I think when you're looking at the trade chart, you're looking at, you got to make up about 1,000 points here. And so you're either talking about this year's 2 and next year's 2, or you're talking about next year's 1 and then probably a pick swap at some point to get to that 1,000 points. Look, if I'm the Browns, I probably want a 1 out of this thing, to not get Travis Hunter and then to move down the 4 spots to the Raiders number 6. So I could certainly see that happening. But you're getting 2 players in 1 here. Go ahead and give up a 1. You would take Travis Hunter, the receiver, in this year's draft with a 1, and you would take Travis Hunter, the DB, in next year's draft with a 1. So it makes sense.
It in a lot of ways it does, and yet at the end of the day, this is a Cleveland Browns team that's got to figure out what do we do with that 6th overall pick. In fact, I think it was on your mock and Lance's. You had the Raiders taking Ashton Genty. You think that's actually what makes the most sense from a Cleveland perspective?
I really do. The Browns were bottom 3rd in the league last year in terms of rushing yards per game, and when Kevin Stefanski's teams were at their best, is when they had a more impactful run game, when Nick Chubb was really rolling. That's not the case anymore. Ashton Genty gets them back on that track, and he's going to make the pathway for whomever the quarterback is this year, whether that's Kenny Pickett, whether they make a move to get Kirk Cousins, a whole lot easier. And then he's going to ease the transition of a rookie or a younger quarterback if that happens next year or maybe even later in this draft.
Genty, one of the big-time playmakers. In fact, you could have made an argument if it wasn't going to be Travis Hunter, Genty could have been your Heisman Trophy winner. At 7, the Jets going big.
Tyler Warren was a popular pick here for a lot of folks. I gave it consideration, ultimately looked at what Aaron Glenn had a front row seat to in Detroit when Penei Sewell transformed that offensive line at right tackle. Armand Membu does that here for the Jets, giving them bookend tackles with Olu Fashanu, their first-round pick, to kind of be their cornerstones for the future.
But you talk about cornerstone players, at least on the defensive side. With the 8th overall pick, Rhett, in your mock, you're going with the dominant edge.
This has the potential to be another 2-for-1 here for the Carolina Panthers. The Butkus Award winner is an off-the-ball linebacker, but led the Bulldogs in sacks the last 2 years. Jalen Walker has big-time pass rush skills, and maybe we're talking about actually like replacing Shaq Thompson and Brian Burns, who never really replaced all in one player. You could be your off-the-ball backer on early downs, come in, rush the passer off the edge on 3rd.
The New Orleans Saints, there's been a lot of speculation about grabbing a quarterback, and at number 9, here he is.
All right, drafting quarterbacks has not been kind to the Saints, save for the exception of the great Archie Manning. Problem is, that was 54 years ago. It's time to hit on a draft pick, and here, I think we're talking about the Peas, Bucky?
Yep.
Playmaker and Kellen Moore. You got it. Their protection is getting better, right? Talisi Fuanga comes in and kind of solidifies things a little bit there. They need more playmakers for this to truly work with Shador. Doesn't have to start right away. Still got Derek Carr there. I think this really starts to make some sense. They need to have an economy option at the quarterback position here at some point to help dig that roster out.
You know, Rhett, this is why I like working with you, man. Because you pay attention to the rundown, you know what's coming, you name-checked Archie Manning. Here we go, 1971. Keep in mind, never drafted a quarterback. This Saints organization that has started a playoff game. Maybe Shador Sanders is the guy that's going to be able to reverse that trend. You think this is a good fit?
Yeah, who that? We that. Look, I like it when you put him with Kellen Moore. And the reason why I like the pairing of Shador Sanders and Kellen Moore is because Kellen Moore is so adaptable and adjustable to the needs of the quarterback. We saw the work that he did with Dak Prescott, then being able to work with Justin Herbert, then making his way to Philadelphia and making it work with Jalen Hurts. Because of that, he can take the skill set that he sees in Shador Sanders and find a way to build this offense. Rhett talked about the playmakers that are needed to help this offense go. Well, yeah, if you're Shador Sanders and you're playing with a pass-first point guard, it is essential that you have enough catch-and-run specialists on perimeter. It works if Kellen Moore is able to get that for Shador.
You know, last couple of years you've been hanging with the Mannings, the Manning camp. You've seen some of the best quarterbacks in the entire country, Rhett. Give me your assessment on Sanders and how he compares in previous draft classes to the other first-round signal callers.
Look, he's a pure passer. I think we've seen that. We saw that at the Pro Day, which everybody saw here on NFL Network. I think a lot was made of the whole pat the ball situation here. And like, I don't really, that doesn't really concern me in and of itself, but I would like to see him be a little bit more urgent getting the ball out of his hands. To me, that's how I view like one of the bigger differences between he and Cam Ward, who we expect to go number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. Cam is urgent, man. We talk about the middle infielder hands. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. I think as Shador's anticipation gets better, you're going to see the ball come out more on time, a little bit faster. And when it does, man, it can be a thing of beauty like you're seeing here on some of these deep balls. But yeah, look, I'd say he was somewhere kind of in the middle of that mix if you put him in with the 6 quarterbacks from a year ago.
Batting that ball, is that a really big thing? Every time I go on
every quarterback that I've ever seen pass the ball in some way, shape, or form, it's just one of those idiosyncrasies things that they got to do to get rid of it. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
All right, and by the way, I want to throw this out there. Sanders might be the most polarizing of the quarterbacks in the last couple of years. I mean, we've done some of these mocks. I mean, Lance Erline had him 29.
Right.
Like, you got him slipping. Look, we thought it was going to be 1-2. You got him at 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, like it's about supply and demand. It's also about need. And 6 quarterbacks who drafted in the first round last year, that eliminates a lot of the people in the quarterback chase. And so if he gets past a certain point, like at 9, there could be a long fall for him. So that's just a part of the deal. You have to have someone that is in need of a quarterback to go get a quarterback.
You know, before we got the draft order, you could have made an argument 6-7 teams were looking for quarterbacks. Now, I get that was before free agency. We had that conversation. But I still think, look, you got the Abdul Carter, which would be a huge win for the Giants. And I know Russ is there, and I know Jameis is there.
You don't like Russ and Jameis?
No, I do, and I love Abdul Carter, so I will be okay with that. But you can still make an argument that that team is in need, and maybe it's down the line.
Maybe you come back in the second round and Tyler Shuck's hanging there,
Jackson Dart.
Maybe Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe is going to be perhaps at the draft. You know, like all that is something to think about.
Thank you for name checking Jalen Milroe, because I don't think his name has popped up here. That dude, you watch the tape on him.
A lot of fun.
Athlete, oh my God, a ton of fun to go and watch him. A lot of studs on the defensive side. In some ways, this is the anti-version of last year's draft. We compare and contrast 2 of the dominant edge rushers in the class and a mini run on that side of the ball. That's still to come. 2025 NFL Draft presented by Bud Light. Guys, it feels like it's just days away. I know we got to wait a little bit, but all the drama of our mock drafts, trust me, it's well worth the wait. All 7 rounds, 3 days live from Green Bay, Wisconsin, kicking off Thursday, April 24th in primetime on NFL Network and NFL Plus. You can find out where all the future stars will land. Visit NFL.com/draft for more information. All right, front and center is Rhett Lewis's mock draft. Now, he is a one-and-done mocker on NFL.com, and this is why he pours over everything to make sure he is bringing you exactly what's going to happen. Here's picks 11 through 15. All right, let's kick things off here with the Colts, going with the corner, because we're actually seeing a ton of really talented guys in the secondary in this year's draft.
Look, the Colts spent some money to bring Charvarius Ward in from the 49ers in free agency, but as a potential upgrade opposite Ward, they could get a real steal here in Will Johnson, who can end up being the best defensive back in this entire draft outside of Travis Hunter. This kind of feels a little bit like the Derek Stingley situation, right? The former LSU corner went to the Texans. Both these players had excellent seasons early in their careers, but kind of trailed off a little bit due to injury and other issues, but top flight talent persists here.
Yeah, in terms of the Atlanta Falcons, his name, Shamar Stewart, continues to pop up and sort of in this range on all of our mocks.
Yammer the big draft debate, traits or production. Do they match up? Do they translate? Well, the Falcons have been they need to take a swing regardless. They've been searching for an edge rusher since Vic Beasley led the league in sacks back in 2016. And if Shamar Stewart can put that elite athleticism to work and hone that craft, bring that quarterback down, I do think that Jeff Ulbrich, the DC, Raheem Morris, the head coach, can bring that out of him. I think they could have a home run here.
All right, sell me on this from an Arizona perspective at 16. Bucky Brooks' rankings of his top DTs, Kenneth Grant is sitting 3rd.
Yeah, and look, Kenneth Grant to me feels like a great fit in Jonathan Gannon's scheme. Could kind of sit in there as kind of a nose tackle type of player, rotate in with Dalvin Tomlinson with the potential to become a Dexter Lawrence type
here we go.
player at the high end for Arizona. I think having the veteran in Calais Campbell, who comes back to where it all started, will really help bring the most out of Grant's big-time talent.
Rhett, Cincinnati, we've watched this team. We've been disappointed by the production of their defense, which is a reason why it sort of kept them on the outside looking in from a postseason appearance. This could help them.
Yeah, in case of a Trey Hendrickson emergency, break glass and turn into the card that has Michael Williams' name on it here. Feels a little bit like the Michelob Ultra version of Trayvon Walker, another former Georgia Bulldog edge rusher, right? Not quite as athletic, and a little bit lighter at 260 pounds, but man, big-time traits. Again, just needs to hone in on that craft a little bit, work that craftsmanship as an edge rusher. I mean, it's a guy who led the team in sacks as a true freshman the year after Trayvon went number 1.
Gold star for you, Rhett, on the evaluation. Meanwhile, the highest NGS draft score of some of these Georgia Bulldogs. And Bucky, they're just studs across the board here. Rhett had Walker going 7 to the Jets, and obviously Williams 17 to Cincinnati. Tell me what the tape tells you about both of these guys.
Well, look, Georgia, Kirby Smart had a wealth of options to really deploy on defense, and these two guys you love. When you look at Jalen Walker, he is everything that you want in these new school hybrid players. Downhill player as an off-the-ball linebacker, great instincts, awareness, and snap. Very physical when he comes on the edge. People think, oh, I'm putting him on the edge just to rush the passer. No, it's about setting the edge, being able to get after it as a runner. But then when he is that sub-package rusher, they see a little dip and rip, being able to get home. His speed, his relentlessness, his energy, he is everything that they talk about with the Georgia Bulldogs because he's a big-time player. He can run from sideline to sideline and create plays in so many different ways. On the other side, when we think about like Williams, I just love both of these guys because of their physicality, toughness, and burst. When you think about Williams, it's just how physical and heavy-handed he is, violent at the point of attack. You brought up the conversation in comparison to Trayvon Walker. You see that. Heavy hands, bully at the line of scrimmage, can do so much, still learning how to be the dominant pass rusher, but his athleticism, his violence gives him an opportunity to be a very dominant player at the next level.
Rhett, what separates these guys?
Yeah, look, I think it's the versatility of Jalen Walker that really does separate him. I mean, you're talking about a player who can be, a guy that covers the field sideline to sideline on first and second down and then come in and be your closer on third down if you really want to. Or maybe he just finds a permanent home out there on the edge. And I think either one is perfectly fine for these guys. And then, with Michael Williams, just spent more time on the edge and feels like it is probably a better frame fit for that position moving forward full time in the NFL. But either way, I mean, both these guys have big time play, big play capability, and really excited to kind of watch how the teams that end up calling their name really deploy them when we get to the league.
Yeah, I think with Walker, the versatility is the thing that makes him a top 10 talent compared to Williams being just outside of that. When you think about Walker being able to line up with number 11 and do some of the things that we've seen Michael Parsons do successfully with the Cowboys, everyone is looking for that H linebacker, as he called him. Hybrid linebacker do so much. I think with Williams, you know exactly what you're getting on the line of scrimmage, a physical bully at the point of attack.
Yeah, and Micah started in kind of that doing both type of role there early on for Dan Quinn when he was the DC in Dallas, and then really kind of migrated to becoming that guy you're just going to have to deal with all the time off the edge.
The reality is Georgia continues to churn out ridiculously talented, productive NFL players. Michigan certainly knocking on the door to also claim that they got a bunch of studs, especially when we talk about some of those edge players. Aiden Hutchinson, can you imagine what Detroit's season could have been had he been healthy the entire way? Meanwhile, taking a look at some of these high draft scores since 2022, this class also really impressive. From the Michigan perspective here, Rhett, highest floor of the group in this year's class.
I really think no one's going to, whoever takes Mason Graham, and I got him going to the Jaguars here, you're not going to miss. We're talking about hitting doubles. We talk about a move the sticks all the time with your first-round draft picks. I mean, this is a stand-up double with Mason Graham having the potential to slide in for a triple, right? I mean, this is a guy with big time. I mean, you see, he's not just a space plugger. He's going to get into the backfield and create some havoc. I think there is some sentiment that what you see is what you're going to get with Mason Graham. He is who he is going to ultimately be in terms of maybe the ceiling isn't as high as maybe even his teammate Kenneth Grant, but boy, the floor and the ceiling are right here. It's a pretty good place to be, in terms. And look, he was a high-level player in college, and he's going to bring that kind of level of play into the league.
He's a high-level player, and I think sometimes people get bored with success. His consistency sometimes lull you to sleep when you watch the tape, but this is a guy that brings the motor, the energy. He is a high-effort player who is also very, very skilled. The wrestling background from high school, the ability to play with leverage at the point of attack. Look, he's not always the sexiest prospect when people are talking about the height, the weight, the length, and those things. But when you turn on the tape, there's not a better football player at the point of attack than Mason Graham.
Feels weird to ask a Carolina guy. The ceiling is the roof. In terms of the ceiling of this group for the Michigan players, who's got the highest ceiling?
Oh, it's Will Johnson. Will Johnson is the great unknown, and he's unknown because injuries have kept him off the field. When he's on the field, he is fantastic. Great instincts, awareness, has a deep and expansive toolbox that allows him to not only play inside and outside, but he can do it using a variety of techniques. This is, I would say, the prototypical corner that played successfully in the league for a long time. The problem is you didn't see him kind of send it off the way that you want to see his final campaign. But make no mistake, when Rhett talks about the Derek Stingley comparison, it is very similar because his final year at LSU, he didn't play just like Will Johnson, but then they get into the league, you're like, I remember why we loved him so much leading up to the draft. He's a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, you make the argument that Derek Stingley's best year was his freshman year at LSU, right? And then he comes back and now is an all-pro here with the Houston Texans. I think the same can be said for Will Johnson. Now, they're different players, right? I'm not saying they're the same player, but the scenario and the situation and the environment around him can kind of be, you can kind of draw some of those comparisons there. But look, you go back to this guy's 23 tape. I mean, he was the defensive MVP in the national championship game. I mean, he was making big-time plays on the ball, and that is, that is a premier position in the league. And when you have ball skills like that and you can make plays on the football, whether you're getting your hands on it or you're picking it off and turning it over, like that is a big-time type of player right here. I could also see Colston Loveland ending up in this discussion too, the tight end. I don't want to leave him out of this thing. We'll see him a little bit later in this mock draft, but both those guys have really high ceilings.
Yeah, a couple picks away from the tight end still to come. And just in case you're wondering, and you're keeping tabs of Rhett's mock, on the clock has been the Seattle Seahawks. And in terms of interior offensive linemen, your number one guy, Buck, is who's now officially off the board.
Yeah, Tyler Booker. Look, and I think in a draft where many of the top offensive linemen have been tackles that we project inside at guard, this dude has been a stud guard in the SEC. He's a leader, has been a leader on that Alabama Crimson Tide offensive line. And look, I think the Seattle Seahawks have their bookend tackles, right? With Cross and with Lucas, you put Booker right in here and immediately upgrades this offense. And I think kind of focuses the run game commitment in Seattle with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, really opens up that offense.
All the fans have been saying roll Tide, all of a sudden might be saying the same thing, go Bucks.
Yeah, sure.
In this draft.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Jahad Campbell, I could certainly see him being like long gone at this point. Again, another guy with some real versatility as an off-the-ball linebacker that can get home to the quarterback, whether that's down on the edge or whether that's coming in as a blitzer. Look, Levante David maybe playing his last year. I think you've got at minimum a future at that position with Jahad Campbell. And then again, if you need to send him on a blitz, you need to have him be your closer on third down. I feel like he could do that in the meantime, rotating in at the second level with a player like Levante David as well.
Second time I'll make reference to a Carolina player here. And Buck, you've loved this dude up. And Rhett, it's your time to say, hey, Denver fans, get ready for a nice offensive piece.
Yeah, look, and I think the Broncos are maybe one of a handful of teams that are the most in need of a game changer at running back. Physical, downhill type of runner here. I mean, I feel like this guy gets downfield in a hurry, aggressively. Maybe not as much side to side, kind of lateral movement as Ashton Genty has, but this is a big time player that Sean Payton's going to love.
Yeah, his ceiling is definitely not the roof. Sorry, I had to get that in one more time. I don't get to say that too often. Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs, but boy, the Rams squad so close to coming back and winning that championship game, that NFC championship game in Philly. What the Ramley should be hoping for in the draft, the answer to that is next.
One of a handful of weapons at Dark's disposal. Now he takes a shot to the end zone. Got it! Touchdown! Pulls it out of his belly and fires a strike game throw, and it's another touchdown here for Ole Miss. My goodness. Dart. My, oh my, is that impressive.
Here's Dart. Dance it around and finds enough room to get into the end zone. Touchdown, Ole Miss.
Dart fires. Wow, what a catch by Trey Harris.
Back here on Mock Draft Live, going through Rhett Lewis's mock draft, and the Steelers, they got QB1.
Yeah, look here, with Jackson Dart, it was a player we saw at the Senior Bowl get better every day during the practice week, had his best day in the final practice. I think it goes under talked about a little bit in that he is a fantastic deep ball thrower with his accuracy. I mean, he had one of the best in the country this year against LSU, and it wasn't even completed. He's got some the ability to kind of get you out of trouble with his legs. I think he was a fantastic processor in Lane Kiffin's offense, and I think he's going to be a nice get here for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Chargers, actually, I like this pick. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, with Colston Loveland, for sure. And I think you could even throw out, the Harbaugh connection. You could throw out the Michigan connection. It's just a really good football player. And look, I think there's some thought that maybe Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver, kind of fits what the Chargers need here too. But man, I think Colston Loveland's going to give you a little bit more in the run game and is just going to provide a little bit more value to your offense here.
Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers at 23, adding some depth to that secondary and the corner of their future.
Yeah, look, with Jahdae Barron, I mean, I think we've talked about him maybe being a full-time slot. Now, I don't know that that's going to be the case here in Green Bay, but he did play 80% of his snaps out on the perimeter at corner for Texas this year. And I think with Jair Alexander's uncertainty within that franchise, that this is kind of a win. The guy who could be inside or outside for you.
Meanwhile, Rhett, I got to tell you, this whole entire offseason, especially in free agency, the Vikings have loaded up on defense, and you think that trend continues in the draft?
I do, and the thing here is this one makes probably too much sense, so it's probably not going to happen. But Harrison Smith likely playing his final year here. Nick Emenwari, I mean, like, let the combine numbers speak for themselves. Sure. The 4.3 40, the 43-inch vertical at 220 pounds. I think he would be a fantastic chess piece in Brian Flores' kind of like diverse scheme defense. So I like what he could bring.
All right, meanwhile, it reset for you, 21 through 25. All eyes on that quarterback, because I think this is going to be an interesting scenario that we will track in the NFL draft. Shedeur Sanders, certainly a guy that some are speculating could fall this late, but if that isn't the case, if Jackson Dart is going to be that guy, Rhett made reference to it, some of those splash plays, over 4,200 yards passing this season, third most in FBS play.
Playing at Ole Miss is nothing like anything else. Electric atmosphere that Coach Kiffin brings to the team. He's one of the best offensive minds in the country, and being able to dial up plays.
Touchdown for Ole Miss. My goodness.
I compared him to Yoda because of his knowledge and ability to create excitement while at the same time teaching his players and developing them.
Any favorite line from Star Wars?
You were the chosen one.
Seriously? I have the high ground? What the heck? You're not a Star Wars fan.
What are you talking about? That's in the same part.
No, but it's after though.
I know. But like, I feel like that's iconic. You were the chosen one. Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss, hotty toddy.
Dart fires a strike to the end zone. 23-yard touchdown pass.
To describe my play, I would say I'm the ultimate competitor. Gonna do whatever it takes to win.
Jackson Dart burns him. Wicked.
Play the game physical at the quarterback position with precision and accuracy, and create a lot of explosive plays.
Fires deep over the middle. He's got Wells. Touchdown. Quarterback draw. Touchdown. Ole Miss. Wow.
I think what sets me apart is the intangibles, my leadership, being able to create a culture for a program at the highest level, everything that's needed to win. I love fashion. I put all my outfits together before the season starts. Shout out to my mom. She's had a huge part of helping me put those pieces together. It really takes the whole off season to put each week up to date and making sure that the fits are right. It's a lot of fun to be able to express yourself, and a great chance to expose it on the Walk of Champions. Draft night for me will be surreal. I don't really know how I can put words into the emotions and feelings that I will have at that moment. Something that I've always dreamed of. I remember writing down as a preschool kid, what's your dream? And it's to win a Super Bowl. So really grateful and humbled for the opportunity. And at the same time, I'm just blessed to have the small circle that I have around me, my family, my loved ones, my friends, and then being able to have my back through it all.
Keep talking about where these quarterbacks are going to land. We will find out. Yes, the 2025 NFL Draft presented by Bud Light kicks off Thursday, April 24th in primetime, NFL Network and NFL Plus. You can visit NFL.com/draft for more information. Let's take a closer look at what the Rams are going to do. It's interesting to me because, a lot of times on these mocks, maybe the name's different, but at least the position group sometimes is relatively similar. That's not the case with this Rams squad. And yet for you, Rhett, is there a player that you think really fits what they need?
Well, look, I think that also talks and speaks to what Les Snead and that personnel staff have done, and that there's not a screaming need right there. And so I think you're getting a lot of versatility. We got to the point here with Malachi Starks where we're talking about a future Pro Bowl player here, regardless of what the athletic testing numbers were. This guy is an incredible player, and it just felt like the value was too good to pass up here for the Rams. But I really wanted to give him Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker from UCLA, was a Butkus Award finalist and one of the most instinctive players in this entire draft, but ultimately went with Malachi Starks here.
All right, I like where your head's at there. It's time for Draft Builders presented by Lowe's. Buck, it sounds like Rhett was going back and forth with this selection. For you, you've got close eyes on this squad. What is their biggest need?
Well, I think their biggest need is the quarterback of the future. I mean, I think this would be the perfect opportunity for the LA Rams to find the quarterback of the future at the bottom of the first round.
But how are we capitalizing?
We got Matthew Stafford. I love Matthew Stafford doing it. But at some point, we got to give him the long kiss goodbye. And so we need to find that guy right now. You always got to go to the grocery store when you're not hungry. You don't want to go when you're desperate. Then you order up stuff. You got a $200 bill.
No.
You want to make sure that we go when we look at these quarterbacks. Look, man, we got you. Got maybe Jackson Dart.
We need to win.
Maybe even you got Tyler Shut. Whatever it is. But at the bottom of the first round is a perfect opportunity for us to get a young quarterback to serve as an apprentice for Matthew Stafford as a quarterback.
I think you and I. Thank you.
Pushing all the chips in.
They're knocking on the door. I don't know if you heard my bump in the last block, but I said that they could have come back
away from winning the NFC Championship game.
Don't you have to double down?
But you don't have to double down. The good ones always have a quarterback in place. I mean, it worked successfully with the Green Bay Packers for years and years on end. Let's get us a young quarterback that we can put in the hopper. What are we going to do? We can go with Jimmy Garoppolo forever? Come on. Get us a young franchise quarterback. This is the time to do it.
I feel pretty good about Sean McVay's ability to curate a quarterback and to figure out that situation. But let's go ahead and maximize what we can do here while we still.
What do we need? We got pass catchers.
Did you see Matthew Stafford almost take Bryson DeChambeau's head off with that pass he threw on the? I mean, like, this guy might go for another 3 years.
Maybe he might.
That's a tomorrow problem? Shouldn't we just be worried about today? Which is
in the today thing again. Going back on the defensive side of the ball, they have loaded up and done a phenomenal job along the defensive line, building a monster up there. You go back to Kobe Turner and Byron Young, and then last year with Fisk and Verse. Now we need this, maybe that second level player. Can I change my? Can I actually give him Schlesinger right now?
Yeah.
Can I change it right now?
Go for it.
Look, I just ultimately I just think this dude's an incredible linebacker. He might be the best true off the ball linebacker in this draft. The thing is, like, does the positional value for a player who's not going to give you that pass rush ability of like a Jahad Campbell or a Jalen Walker really doesn't match at 26? So I think you could think about this there in the first round, but maybe if they end up moving back or moving out of the first round, that Schlesinger's the guy they could look to.
It doesn't sound like you have a lot of conviction on what they need. It sounds like you need to come over my way to get a franchise quarterback. If we do this, and if
is that Dart? Is that hoping that it's Sanders? Like, who is?
It could be any of those young guys.
How convicted are you? If you don't
I'm
even know
very. I don't know if Jackson Dart's going to be there because in your mock draft that you belabored over for 2 weeks, you got Jackson Dart going to Pittsburgh. I don't know if Jackson Dart is there. Man, we're running the card up because we got facing the franchise for the future.
It's not throwing darts. It's really not. This is the crystal ball that we all need.
See what sticks.
At the end of the day, Kansas City always going to be in the Super Bowl hunt because of 15 Patrick Mahomes. Rhett's filling an obvious need with one of the most explosive players in the draft. That's still to come here on Mock Draft Live, presented by Toyota.
The most dynamic player in college football.
Touchdown, Ashton Jeanty. What a run for Ashton Jeanty. Touchdown! What a throw by Cam Ward. Another big moment.
Big quarterback goes lumbering into the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Colorado. Lightning in the game. Shador. Touchdown! Touchdown, Colorado!
Back here on Mock Draft Live, examining Rhett Lewis's mock draft. You see picks 26 through 30. Donovan Jackson, a lot of our mocks, we have them going on the defensive side, but if you like big-time performers, Jackson in the big moments, no sacks or quarterback hits allowed in all 4 CFP games this past season. Mike Green, small school guy, FBS leader in sacks, 17 of them. I will certainly take that. One name that's been thrown out there a whole lot is what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do. We saw him go wide receiver last year, Rhett. Little T-Mac 2.0?
Yeah, I mean, has there ever been a guy's draft range where as like 5 to 35? That's what I feel like it is with Tedero McMillan. Guys, there's teams certainly that love him, and maybe some that just don't feel like, his body of work is a fit with what you see with his urgency off the ball, maybe some of a little bit of rawness or laziness at the top of his routes at times, but make no mistake, big-time player with the ball in his hands, goes up and gets it like this. I think with Ted McMillan here with the Kansas City Chiefs, you have a long-term plan when Travis Kelce moves on. You bring a different body type to the table that they don't have in that receiver room. There's a lot to like there if you're the Chiefs at 31, but obviously wouldn't be surprised if he's gone.
No, it's interesting that you talk about the Chiefs because he could be a big slot receiver. You think about for years Marcus Colston, the role that he played with the New Orleans Saints, and how difficult it is to deal with that kind of player. When you think about T-Mac, the first thing that comes to mind is his ability to play above the rim. He expands the strike zone because of his athleticism, his length, and his leaping ability. Time after time after time again, you see him take the ball off the head, off those defensive backs, the body control, just the ability in the red zone to win. These soft hands, just sticky when it comes to those one-hand grabs. And look, people are talking about it, but he is crafty with the ball in his hands, finds a way to get these plays. Look, there's been a lot of conversation about T-Mac. He went from being a guy that we talked about being maybe a top 10 talent to maybe at the bottom of the first round. When you really dig into his game, there's a lot to like about him. I think he still goes somewhere in the middle first.
On 40s and free agents, I think DJ, or maybe it was on Move the Sticks, that DJ talked about the fact that he's talked to teams that only have one receiver that they're going to go in the first round, and that's Matthew Golden.
Yeah. Isn't that wild to me?
I mean,
what's happened?
We had a 5-year run where we had like 5 and 6 going in the first round. I mean, can't keep producing them all.
Well, look, T-Mac obviously is certainly one of those talented guys. I mean, we had close eyes on him, watching him play at U of A. Eagles, final pick, round number 1?
Yeah, look.
Assuming they keep it?
I mean, just keeping with the tradition, right? Let's just keep stacking on the defensive front. Now, let's also keep in mind that there has some attrition along that defensive line for the Super Bowl champions. Milton Williams is now gone. Walter Nolan coming in here with the final pick of the first round seems like a slam dunk to continue keeping that front a position of strength up there with Carter and with Davis and Jalix Hunt now, and just that whole crew coming off the edge and on the interior. I think Nolan would be a nice fit.
I love the run in this round number 1 for you, Rhett. I got to tell you, I don't know if the Eagles hold on to this pick. Always been known to deal out.
Too.
All right, who says we got to stop after 1 round? We got some familiar names going in the top 5. The perfect pair to go along with them in round number 2. Oh yeah, we're going deep here on Mock Draft Live. Welcome back to Mock Draft Live. You know, not for nothing, why am I doing the promo for Path to the Draft? I feel like you guys, you started the show, you guys should be selling this.
Let's go. Weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern, Path to the Draft. Bucky's with us. Charles Davis is with us. We got Mark. We've got all of the intel. We've got all of the analysis. We get some great player guests as well as they try to give us a little bit of background along their path to the draft. A lot of fun each and every week.
Just to be clear, that was so much better than me just reading the standard promo.
Oh, come on.
Rhett, we got to just have you do this all the time.
Come on.
All right, let's take a closer look at some of the top selections here. According to Rhett, now you're seeing first round. This is who these teams were grabbing.
Yeah.
And then the second pick that they have, so the Browns would be picking at 33, the Giants 34, and so forth here. So let's go through some of the perfect pairs.
Yeah.
So we got that trade.
Okay.
You got the Raiders moving up to go and take their guy. You got Ashton Genty going to Cleveland. So who's that perfect fit to pair with him?
Yeah, look, I think this could easily be one of the quarterbacks, right? If there is truly a consensus within that draft room that this could be our guy, beyond this year and for the next 10 years, our franchise quarterback. If you can find it, you take it, obviously. But I think at this point here, let's go get a player that we've talked about in the first round projections a whole bunch. Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver for Ohio State, and to me, the one word that describes him is professional.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he is. He's always been reliable, dependable, is really good athleticism, a good route runner, understands where he needs to be and how to present himself as open for the quarterback. Was a big time force on that Ohio State offense for a number of years, and I think he's going to come in and be an immediate impact player.
Certainly big time. We saw that during the college football playoffs. Buck, you sort of name-checked it. And I don't know if you knew what we were going to be doing, and that's why when you were talking about the Giants, you said, hey, you like them going with Abdul Carter? And I said, yeah, but I think we still need a quarterback. You think there's one looming?
Yeah, look, Tyler Shuck could be available for the Giants at the top of the second round. If you go and get Abdul Carter, which is more on brand, now you need to come back and get a quarterback that could be your franchise quarterback going down the road. When we think about Tyler Shuck, everyone has said this. He has the prototypical tools that you see from franchise quarterbacks in the league over the last 2 decades. Tall, big arm, great arm talent. has persevered through some adversity, so you kind of like that. And when people are looking at the quarterbacks that have had success, all of those things are necessary. Tyler Shough could be a nice fit for the New York Giants, given all the things that he brings to the table as a QB1.
Right, you called the Senior Bowl. You were around this dude.
Yeah.
So what was the scuttlebutt there?
I've got to know him at the Manning Passing Academy a bunch too. This is a guy that just has a great self-awareness of who he is and the path that he's been on. Obviously, the injuries really kind of influenced how he played for 7 years in college football, ended up at Louisville where he felt like he really got a taste of what pro offense is all about. He's learned 5 offenses in his career. He's going to come in and have seen a ton of football and have been around a ton of different schemes. I think he's going to be, and look, the age, some people view it as a negative. I think like this guy's going to be more ready to play than a lot of quarterbacks.
Look, Bo Nix, we loved him up for all those starts. A little bit different of the circumstances here. By the way, aren't we all jealous? The 7-year plan in college.
How much fun would that be?
Take me back.
Sign me up for that. That would have been awesome. Number 1 overall pick, Tennessee Titans. You like Cam Ward there.
Yeah.
Round number 2. What's the pairing?
Yeah, Harold Landry gone, right, from the edge. So let's go get the next best edge rusher that's out there right now. I think James Pierce, a guy we saw at the Combine, run 4.5, really kind of glide around in those position drills. I think he's a really smooth operator, a smooth mover out there, and I think could immediately provide some burst to that Tennessee Titans defense that is now void of one of those top-end edge rushers after Harold Landry departed in free agency. So I look at that as a fit, as a value, and as a really nice pairing.
Meanwhile, Buck, the Jags are a team that you know as well as any team. You're part of that radio broadcast crew during the course of the season. What do you like for them to do if Mason Graham is the selection with that 5th overall pick?
They have to continue to get better on defense. I know Liam Cohen wants to put his hands on that offense and fix that, so you trust him to do his thing with what they have. But now you're going to get a corner like Trey Amos coming from Ole Miss, a long, rangy cornerback that is really good at doing a bunch of different things in coverage, sticky with his hands, great with his technique. You now have an opportunity to get longer. You put him opposite Tyson Campbell with Jerry Jones. You have a nice young secondary that can grow for the next 4 or 5 years and begin to impose their will on opponents with their style of play.
And look, even if Ashton Genty ends up being the pick at 5, which there's certainly been some buzz, like you could come back around, and in this simulation, like Derek Harmon is sitting there. Like if you really want to go get a D tackle, you can find one there in the first 5 picks of the second round, or you still go ahead and get a big time corner here like you're talking about, Bucky.
Do you like defense and Graham with that first pick, or is Genty?
Oh, no. I think Graham is a really good pick. I think the thing is we've talked so much about Graham, and there's no pizzazz to taking another defensive tackle, but he is exactly what they need. Hard-working, tough-minded, physical player at the point of attack. He'd be good. And if you can add him on the front end and then someone in the back end, man, you're cooking with gas if you're the Jaguars.
All right, no pizzazz maybe on draft day, but I'll tell you what, when the games start rolling around and you got a productive defensive player, it's all good. You started the draft shaking things up, not at 1, but at number 2 with the Raiders moving up and trading with the Cleveland Browns. In your mind, they grabbed Travis Hunter, so at 37, who's the pick?
Right, and look, this could be part of the deal to move up with Cleveland here if they decide to go the 2 second-round pick route, or maybe there's a different way it shakes out where they lose this pick, but if they're staying here, I really like going to get Quinshon Judkins, a guy, the running back from Ohio State, that new offensive coordinator there in Las Vegas, Chip Kelly, is very familiar with. A guy with, again, aggressive downhill mentality that will beat you up if he has to, but can run by, as we saw in the Combine with his sub 4.5 40-yard dash time. So I love that one there. And what you're doing is you went out and traded for Geno Smith. You gave him the contract extension. Now we have surrounded him with big-time talent at wide receiver and Travis Hunter, at running back and Quinshon Judkins, and you have an offensive line that's growing together. Now Jackson Powers-Johnson from a year ago. You still got Colton Miller at left tackle. Like, this feels like an offense that's now ready to go compete in the AFC West.
I mean, he's a really talented player, and I think when you have a big physical player that Chip Kelly knows well, it's easy to build that offense around. When we think about Geno Smith and what he is going to do on this offense as a point guard, just getting the ball and distributing, we know we got Brock Bowers controlling the middle of the field.
That's right.
But if we have the running game that allows us to set up for play action, it works well for what Pete Carroll wants this offense to look like.
I know we started the show talking about this move. You guys know the Raiders organization pretty well and that personnel. Do you like them moving up to the 2nd overall pick? Do you need to?
For Travis Hunter, yes. I like good players. Who wouldn't like a good player?
You still get one at 6, though.
It's always about a great player, and Travis Hunter is a great player. You got to make the move.
Wouldn't do it if it was just for a wide receiver. Wouldn't do it if it was just for a DB. But when it's both, make the move.
Guy, two-way player. We saw it in college. There's some of our analysts that push back a little bit and say, hey, full bore, both sides.
Let's go.
Tough ass. Rhett's like, no, we're rolling with it. We'll see you next week.